Welcome to the OSSLT lessons for the real life narrative, the information paragraph, and reading a news report. My name is Mrs. Caprara and I'm the literacy lead at Loretto College School. So far you've worked through a lot of writing, and there's also a fair bit of reading on the OSSLT. So on the OSSLT, reading becomes defined as the process through which the reader actively makes meaning for a variety of written texts. So it's more than just reading the words, it's taking meaning from those words that you're reading. Students are expected to understand these texts according to the expectations in the Ontario curriculum across all subjects up to the end of grade 9. So there are several reading parts on the OSSLT. This lesson is focusing on the real life narrative, the information paragraph, and it will focus also on reading a news report, different of course from writing the news report. The OSSLT is looking to see that you understand explicit ideas. Those are ideas that are right in the text. So for example, if it says what year was so-and-so born, that year would be in the text. The second reading skill is that it's looking that you can understand implicit information. Implicit is like reading between the lines. What is the person really trying to say, and making an inference or sort of predicting what they're trying to say. And the third reading skill the test is looking for is that you can make connections between information in the reading and your own personal knowledge, whether it's text to text, so making a connection with something else that you've read, text to self, making a personal connection with something, or text to the world, what you've read on the OSSLT and then making a connection to something going on in the world. When you're responding to the reading questions, be sure to do the following. Make sure you use all of the space provided for completing the writing parts of these questions. So most often, the reading parts will give you multiple choice questions and a short answer. For the short answer question, you're given 6 lines to write on, and the expectation is that you fill all 6 lines. Don't go over the 6 lines, and don't not write all 6 lines. Also, take advantage of the blank space provided. Anything you write in that area is not scored. So use that space to organize your ideas or outline what you want to say. When you're responding to the reading questions, read all of them very carefully. You will not receive any marks if your answer is off topic. Finally, read the multiple choice questions before you read the passage. This will ensure that you'll do a more close reading of the text, looking for the correct answers. And in a few moments, I'll go through an example of doing just that with you. Okay, so one of the reading pieces on the OSSLT is something called the real life narrative. This is sort of like a biography. It's a story, that's why they call it a narrative, but it's based on a real life person or an event or a real life place. Sometimes it sounds like a news report because it's very factual, of course, because it's based in real life, but it might also sound more like a magazine article or a special interview piece with somebody. This selection deals with comprehension, how well you understand the reading selection. It's usually about 1.5 to 2 pages in length. It's the longest reading that you'll have on the OSSLT. You'll have to answer 7 to 9 multiple choice questions about the reading. The questions will have to do with all sorts of things, the W5H of the story, the definition of a word, how a paragraph has been organized. It's really testing you on almost everything possible here. To read more about this, just see handout number 1. The next reading you'll have to do is reading a news report. This is a relatively short, factual report about something that's happened in the world. It's a real news report. Again, this section will deal with your comprehension on how well you understand the reading. The news report reading on the OSSLT is usually about a half a page to 1 page in length, and you'll have to answer about 5 to 6 multiple choice questions and 1 short answer question about the reading. The questions, the multiple choice questions, again, will have to do with all sorts of things. The W5H of the story, a definition of a word in it, or how the paragraphs are organized. The short answer question will also ask you to use specific details and examples from the selection to support your answer. So you must be sure to highlight as you read so that you have evidence to choose from. Otherwise, you might have to read the article all over again, and that will waste time. See handout 1 for more information. A third reading piece you'll have to complete on the OSSLT is the information paragraph. This is a relatively short, non-fiction piece about something in the world. For example, polar bears or smog warnings. Read very carefully and study any images. There's usually one image accompanied with this information paragraph. The readings are usually a half page in length. It's one big paragraph, approximately 15 to 20 sentences long. Based on that reading, you'll have to answer 5 to 6 multiple choice questions and 1 short answer question about the reading. Again, the multiple choice questions will have to do with all sorts of things. The W5H, a definition of a word, how a paragraph's been organized, what a semicolon means in line 7. These are just some examples. The short answer question will ask you to state the main idea and provide at least 1 supporting detail. So you must be sure to highlight as you read so that you have your evidence to choose from. Again, so you don't have to reread the whole thing, wasting time. I know you know how to find the main idea because you've been practicing it since grade 9. See handout 1 for more details. See handout 1 for some more information about refreshing your understanding of the main idea. Remember, the main idea of any passage is determining what the author's goal is. What do they want you to know and walk away with? Another way to phrase the question is to think of the following situation. Let's say your religion teacher gave you a pop quiz about the chapter 3 homework from the night before. After class, you see your friend in the hallway. She is also on her way to the same religion class with the same teacher. And you want to warn her about the quiz because you know she didn't do the homework. You only have 20 to 40 seconds to tell her what the main idea was of chapter 3. How would you know what to say? And in some way you would know what to say because you just wrote the quiz and you had an idea of what the main idea was. Let's look at some more understandings of the main idea. When you answer a question that asks you to state the main idea, choose only one main idea as the focus. It's asking for the main idea, not some of the main ideas. Refer to details that are only in the selection. For this type of question, never use your own examples and never use your own thoughts. Use all of the lines provided. Stating the main idea is just the first step, but you have to be able to show why it is the main idea. And to do this, you add details from the reading that support it. These are the details that build up the main idea in the reading selection. So let's say, for example, in your answer, you have your first sentence that says the main idea is blah, blah, blah. One detail to support this is blah, blah, blah. But that's only 2 parts of a 3-part kind of question. It's not enough to simply write the detail. You must also explain why that detail is significant to supporting the main idea that you've indicated. If you make the person marking the work make that connection, you won't get a high score. Because there are so many details in a piece of reading that any of the details you could just throw in there. But how does the marker of your paper know that you know that that detail matches the main idea? So you need to explain yourself. See handout 1 for more details. Finding the main idea or answering any of the reading questions requires a good use of reading strategies. All readers process text as they read. Some do so more effectively than others. An effective reader is strategic and reflective about their reading. In other words, you're using your metacognition skills. That means that you're planning, you're monitoring, and you're evaluating as you're reading. It's not just putting your eyes over the words. You're thinking, well, why is that word there? Why did the author choose this detail? What does this mean for me? On the OSSLT, you are allowed to mark up your reading booklet with highlighters or underlining, so make sure you make use of that basic strategy. Read the screen and handout 1 for some more quick examples of reading strategies. The reading strategies on the previous screen are short, easy to remember ones. If you look at your handout number 2, you'll see more detailed reading strategy reference sheet. It's a good idea for you to look over this before the OSSLT. I just want to point out a few of these for you. The first one I'd like to point out to you is questioning. Asking yourself questions before you read, as you read, and after you read. On the OSSLT, as I said before, it's always a very good idea to take a quick read of the multiple choice questions and short answer questions that you're going to be asked after a reading selection. It helps you to find those words as you're reading and remember to highlight them so that you know to go back to those to find your answer. I'd also like to point out visualizing, using your 5 senses to create a mental picture. Not all of the readings are going to be something that you know something about. You might never have ever studied anything about dinosaurs, and so you're going to rely on the reading about a dinosaur to paint the picture for you. If you can use your 5 senses to create what that experience would be, it might help you understand the reading a bit better because you can place yourself in that reading. Okay, so let's practice some of the reading strategies on a news report question that you'll see on the OSSLT. So this one here is called New Discoveries at the Dinosaur Capital of the World. I just want to point out first, you can see here there are numbers next to each of the paragraphs. So that's telling me already that maybe one of the questions is going to ask me about a specific paragraph. So not only should I pay attention to the content, what the article says, but also how it's organized or how it is structured. So let's take a quick peek at the questions before we begin. So I see here there are 5 multiple choice questions. And a good idea is just to take a quick read about what it's asking you so you can pay attention to certain points while you're reading. So it's asking me about the headline, something about scientists and dinosaurs, so I should pay attention to that part. Hadrosaurs, so when I'm reading I should look for this word so that I know where to find that answer. Let's see, and it's also asking me about a specific paragraph, looking at the words here, so I should pay attention to those. And also here, paragraph 2 relates to paragraph 1, so I'm looking at structure. There's also one short answer question, and it's asking, how might the information in this news report encourage people to visit Alberta? Use specific details and examples from the selection to support your answer. So I need to look for things that would encourage me to visit Alberta, and I need to be able to put that example from the text in my answer. So let's read the article and we'll highlight a few things as we go. Remember, of course, you can bring a highlighter to the day of the test. So new discoveries at the dinosaur capital of the world. Recent discoveries have strengthened Alberta's reputation as the dinosaur capital of the world. So I know Alberta is the dinosaur capital, so I'll highlight that. Scientists at the Royal Tyrrell Museum in Drumheller, Alberta, so I know the scientists are there, are examining the first duck-billed dinosaur skeleton to be recovered in northern Alberta. Well, that's pretty interesting. The skeleton could represent a new species of dinosaur. Interesting. The hadrosaur, well, I'm going to highlight this because I read in one of the questions, lived about 73 million years ago. Wow, he must be tired. When much of Alberta was covered by a vast inland sea. herds of duck-billed creatures moved across the lushly vegetated lowlands, followed in time by predators such as Tyrannosaurus rex. That's interesting. So I think it's interesting that they traveled in herds, so they weren't all by themselves. It looks like they were vegetarians because they lived in the lushly vegetated lowlands. And they had a predator, and it was our good old T-Rex. Let's keep reading. Since the retreat of the ice more than 10,000 years ago, retreat. Well, that word might be familiar to you because of religion class. You've been on a retreat. And you should know from religion class that a retreat is when you go away to somewhere different to sort of have a good think. So we use the word retreat here, meaning when the ice left, when it moved away. So that's a good way. If you don't understand what a word means, try to go back to any background knowledge you might have of it. So we know that the ice left 10,000 years ago, and erosion carved out the hillsides, uncovering the bones of the once abundant dinosaurs and shaping the dramatic and mysterious Badlands. Interesting. So I remember this was also in the question, dramatic and mysterious. Let's keep reading. Interested teens and adults can attend day digs sponsored by the Royal Tyrrell Museum. Well, that's helpful because remember the short answer question is asking you why might I want to visit Alberta? So an interested person might visit Alberta because you can go on a day dig, which is kind of cool. It's not like you get to dig for dinosaurs every day. Let's keep reading. Thousands of important specimens have been uncovered by participants, including a 1.3 meter long leg bone from a duck-billed dinosaur, fragments of turtle shell, fossilized crocodile, and fish teeth, remains of horned dinosaurs, and nearly 100 tyrannosaur teeth. Wow. So that means that just regular people are finding these cool things. So we've got bones, turtle shells, crocodiles. What else here? 100 tyrannosaur teeth. My goodness. Okay, so that's the article. So now let's go to the questions. So let's see. The headline of this news report does not A, describe the museum, B, summarize the story details, C, suggest the kind of discovery, or D, identify the location of the story. So what doesn't the headline do? Let's look at it. New discoveries at the dinosaur capital of the world. Well, it kind of summarizes the story. It's about a new discovery. It suggests the kind because it says the word dinosaur, and it identifies the location, the capital of the world of fossils. So the correct answer is A, describe the museum. There's no mention of the museum in the headline of the article. Let's move to number 2. Scientists in Alberta are studying the duck-billed dinosaur skeleton to A, perhaps discover a new species, B, determine the degree of hillside erosion, C, learn about the ancient climate of Drumheller, or D, possibly uncover the mystery of the Badlands. So scientists in Alberta are studying the duck-billed dinosaur skeleton to do what? Let me go back up. Where did I see the word discover and the word scientist? Here we go. So scientists at the Royal Tyrrell Museum are examining the first duck-billed dinosaur. It could represent a new species. Perfect. I'm really happy I highlighted those words. And remember, I knew to highlight the word scientist because I saw it in the question beforehand. So that's the answer. Number 2, A, perhaps discover a new species. Let's go to number 3. Hadrosaurs were most likely threatened by A, the retreat of ice, B, the erosion of land, C, predatory dinosaurs, or D, newly discovered species. Again, if you hadn't read the article and you never really studied dinosaurs when you were younger, how would you even know what hadrosaurs were most likely threatened by? Again, a good reading strategy was to look at this question because now I can simply pop up to the article, look at where I highlighted hadrosaur right over here, and let's see, what does it say about the hadrosaur? That's right, predators such as Tyrannosaurus rex. Perfect. So for number 3, the answer is C. They are most likely threatened by predatory dinosaurs. Now, this question has a small little trick in it because it also talks about the erosion of land and the retreat of ice, which is in the next paragraph after talking about hadrosaurs. But it's important to understand what it's trying to tell you. The ice didn't retreat until 10,000 years ago. And remember, the hadrosaur was 73 million years old. So, of course, the ice didn't bother the hadrosaur because the ice wasn't around. It didn't start moving until a dinosaur had already died. Be very careful for those types of very similar answers you may think, but make sure you do your highlighting so you remember what the correct answer could be. So let's go to number 4. In paragraph 3, the words dramatic and mysterious are used to A, explain erosion, B, describe dinosaurs, C, explain the day digs, or D, describe the landscape. Again, I'm glad I read the question earlier because now I can just pop up to the article and see where I highlighted those words, dramatic and mysterious. Interesting. So what are those two words describing? Well, they're describing the Badlands, but what about the Badlands? The shaping of them. So let's pop down to the question. Is that one of the options? Yep, describing the landscape, the shape of the landscape. Very good. Last multiple choice question. Paragraph 2 relates to paragraph 1 because paragraph 2 either A, outlines the contents of the Royal Tyrrell Museum in Drumheller, Alberta, B, explains the term dinosaur capital of the world as used in paragraph 1, C, describes a sequence of steps in the discovery process identified in paragraph 1, or D, provides additional information about the skeleton recovered in northern Alberta. So let's see. Does it do number 1, the contents of the museum? Let's look at paragraph 2. Nope, it doesn't mention the museum at all, so it's not that one. B, explains the term dinosaur capital of the world as used in paragraph 1. Let's pop up. Nope, nothing here. C, describes a sequence of steps in the discovery process identified in paragraph 1. Let's look at paragraph 2. It doesn't look like a series of steps. I don't see any transitional words like first or second or next and then. So I know it's not that. So it must be D. Provides additional information about the skeleton recovered in northern Alberta. Absolutely. If you look at paragraph 2, that's all the information is. It's about the hadrosaur. Very good. So let's move on to the short answer question. Let's take a look here. So we have, how might the information in this news report encourage people to visit Alberta? Use specific details and examples from the selection to support your answer. So remember, you do have this rough notes section where you can jot down any of your notes or craft your paragraph. Let's see if we can put together an answer here. So you always want to start with the question in your answer. So it's asking, how might the information encourage people? So you start with the information in this news report might encourage people to visit Alberta because readers may now be curious. Oh, let's start a new line here. May now be curious to see a possible new species. Remember in the paragraph 3 where we read that adults and teens might be interested because they get to do the day dig? That was a clue in the article for this question. Of course, it's in there to encourage you because it's telling you you may be interested in it. So I've answered the question. Is that enough? No, of course not. You've only answered the first part. In the first part of the question, consider that about 1 out of 3 if you were to get this as a question. The other 2 marks out of that 3 have to be your details. So let's see here. What can we say? Let's talk about the day digs. So we'll say the selection talks about day digs for people to attend in Alberta that are sponsored by the Royal Tyrrell Museum. People who read this news report may now want to participate in the day digs to discover new specimens. Okay, so let's just double check here. So I've got the first part of the answer. The information might encourage people because readers may now be curious. Good. Of course, the news report could spark your interest. The selection talks about day digs. Okay, so I've mentioned the selection because the question has asked me to, right? It says use specific details and an example from the selection. So the selection talks about day digs. Perfect. So that's a good detail, a good example for people to attend in Alberta that are sponsored by the Royal Tyrrell Museum. That's a good detail as well. But now I have to connect it. Remember we talked about connecting your evidence to your point? So if I only left it at this, it would be like, okay, well, so what? So what if the selection talks about that? I need to make the connection, and that's where the third sentence comes in. People who read this news report may now want to participate in the day digs to discover the new specimens. Perfect. I've connected my answer up here to my details here. So this is 1, 2, 3. 3 out of 3. So this response would receive a code 30. Remember, that's the highest score because it identifies a way that the report encourages people to visit Alberta. The response uses a specific and relevant detail from the selection and clearly shows how the day digs encourage people to visit Alberta. That's this sentence. Perfect. Make sure you do your own practice as well. Okay, girls, now use handout number 3 to practice. You can continue practicing these types of questions for the real life narrative, the news report reading, or the information paragraph in your LCS OSSLT practice booklet. You'll find these practice questions on pages 20 to 40. The answers and other questions are also available on the literacy website at lcsliteracy.weebly.com. You can also ask me any questions at all that you have about the OSSLT. I'm usually in my classroom, room 106, or in the dark room, room 102. You can ask your classroom teacher for help, any teacher that you trust, or even Miss Leone and Mr. Rusiello will give you a hand. Good luck, ladies.